Hello, and welcome to With AuDHD SAS Amanda Jayne Thrives. Today, we are talking AuDHD and exercise and looking at solo, social, or parasocial. I was going to do this recording yesterday, but I was just completely wiped out. For the last 2 weeks since I started teaching my in-person classes, I've just, my energy has been, yeah, just so low. So for me at the moment, exercise has been very much, I think I said the same last week, very much just walking, and sometimes doing some yoga or some body weight moves or weighted moves in my kitchen. That's where I've got a lot of my training stuff. But this week it's been one or two walks. I had one cycle in my kitchen because that's where my spin bike is. I love my spin bike. And otherwise, it's just been what I've been doing in my classes, which, of course, because I'm teaching, I'm not doing much of the exercise myself. And it's been exactly what I've needed. The rest has been exactly what I've needed. And I think um universally, not just in terms of AuDHD, just universally, there's this idea of what you should be doing with exercise and your energy and how motivated you should feel, how much you want to do it, with very little real world perspective on the fact that we're not designed to have consistent energy and do the things all the time. And it can take time to decondition that. It's very, very much a personal journey, a self discovery journey when it comes to being able to listen to and validate your needs, your body's needs, when we're kind of built up or brought up in, society where we're told what we should do, what we shouldn't do, and, the whole virtue tied to exercise. Now, I'm going to say before I carry on, you might hear in the background in the living room instead of the kitchen because for some reason my washing machine has been going for I think like 3 hours by this point, and it seems not to want to stop. So I'm sorry if you can hear some whirring in the background. So I don't like wear foundation or anything like that at the moment, but I put a little bit around my eyes because with this light, it made me look like I'd like walked into a door and it had blown all the blood vessels in my eyes or something. It's like they were so dark. Um, anyway, I digress. So yeah, so that's where I've kind of been like at energetically, and I'm very, very much enjoying wintering. I love getting out and doing my walk. As I said on the video and the podcast last week, I love going out on my stimmy walks. It's one of my favorite parts of the day. At the same time, the weather here has been sort of wild enough that it's been a bit more challenging. Rain won't stop me going out for my walk. However, I might need to get some more grippy shoes because the sliding is real. And yes, I have slipped, slipped and fell on my bum in muddy, rainy, patches. But because I do my training the way that I do, it means that I can land. And so I remember one time I landed, it's almost like my arm was like a tripod. And if you're not working on sort of like your strength and your flexibility and making sure you're getting enough calcium and things like that, then Maybe there could be some issues in the wrist and the shoulder there, but I was like, yes, it's working. But yeah, so today I wanted to talk to you about making choices around exercise based on looking at what you need socially. So this has been something that's been on my heart, on my mind for a long time, because it's one of those considerations and parts that we can maybe overlook, but is a really, really powerful thing to look at if you find that you find it really difficult to either start exercise or stick with it. So, when I'm doing my work within my courses, rather than me telling people what to do, I am posing lots of self-discovery questions. And this is one of the areas that I look at. So, solo, social, or parasocial, you might be familiar with the first two, but maybe not so much the last. The parasocial is going to be really interesting because of a lot of what is going on in the world and in the media, particularly in the UK right now. So that'll be cool to go into that. So for me, exercising. So when I think about it, I am one of those people, like I love exercise. It is one of my special interests. It's very stimmy for me. I am very sensory seeking when it comes to movement and just in the body in general. Even down to, I joke sometimes that I became a personal trainer because it meant that I got to live in Lycra all the time. Like I get to have clothes. I like my clothes to feel tight, but not too tight. I like to feel hugged by my clothes during the day. But when I am going to sleep, say I like the clothes to be really loose. So that's another thing, is sensory considerations and things. But in terms of exercise, I am very, very much a person who likes to work out solo. I like going for runs. I like going walking. I like training in the gym. But a lot of the sports that I do, a lot of the types of exercise that I do, are very like solo pursuits. And even if they could be something that was done with another person, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I get, I've been teaching for so like, since 2008. So that's, I don't know, my maths is not going to math right now, like 18 years or something like that. So a long time. So of course, quite a lot of the times I will be asked, oh, can I come for a run with you? Or can I come to the gym with you? And I can feel myself kind of like going, because for me, that is my time when I am able to be in my own thoughts and just do what I'm wanting to do. It's very much my time. I could even think of it in terms of like parallel play. I like to go to the gym, even though like I've got a lot of equipment at home, so I can do workouts at home. But I like to go to the gym because I do like to be around other people, or the potential to, make friends or speak to people. But it's very rare that I'm going to want to train with someone, because I like to do things how I do them, in the time frame that I do them, in the order that I do them, without having to, in a lot of cases end up almost teaching somebody else. And maybe that comes from, for a long time, of course, I was a personal trainer. So you don't, if you're doing it for your enjoyment versus doing it for your job, it's very different. So if I was to take something like an exercise class, for example, which I would class under social, and sometimes I guess parasocial as well, I don't like going to classes. But I love teaching them. So I used to teach up to 18 exercise classes a week. I'm now teaching 2 classes a week. Um, and I love leading classes. I love teaching classes. I love being with people in classes. Very Leo coded, I guess. I love to perform. And I love designing the classes. And, so if it's me that's leading the class, I like that. If I'm going to go to a class, it's not very often something I choose. Um, yeah, so it's going to be easier for like if I'll sort of give a rundown from sort of my perspective what it looks like, and then I'll circle back and go into what it might look like for you. Um, so to go back into the exercise classes, it's not that I don't like to do other people's classes. It's maybe if I think about it from the autistic and ADHD sort of perspective, it's that maybe that social expectation, or I don't know, because this is where it ties into the parasocial. I am a massive lover of parasocial exercise. So I love doing things like YouTube workouts, or if in the past I've maybe worked with a trainer and got them to write up a program, and I'll do the program. But I'm going to say it's more applicable to YouTube workouts. For example, I had done yoga before, but I really started doing yoga when I started doing the Yoga with Adriene classes at the beginning of lockdown. So 6 years ago, and I was doing them almost every single day. And it was one of those things for me where it was like that being social without there being any sort of interaction. So it felt almost like kind of having company, and I was gaining the benefits of being taught by someone else, and then being kind of relatable, but without the pressure of socially interacting. So this is why I think that this can potentially be a great addition, if it's not something already in your toolkit as an AuDHDer, is having, a parasocial form of exercise where you maybe do get that sense of comfort. It's kind of like rewatching your favorite shows, right? It's that comfort of the familiarity, but without that social pressure to um, actually interact, or that back and forth that can sometimes come with going to classes. So I haven't done it yet. It's part of my audacious living. So school is where I've got everything. I've got the lifestyle audit. So capital A, little U, big, capital D audit. But I'm going to make that as its own standalone thing, because this is essentially like a questionnaire. It's huge. So, you would take your time to do it. But it's where you start doing this sort of self-discovery and start asking yourself the questions that allows you to be able to build. So be it a lifestyle, or, food routine, or exercise routine, but that is truly designed to fit your needs. Because once you start to understand what you need, um, be it your sensory needs, your social needs, your energetic needs, it takes away that pressure to perform. Um, but it also really helps to build that inner trust and that inner confidence, and that belief in yourself and your ability to make decisions around your lifestyle that moves you away from that kind of like fitness industry, diet industry sort of, it's all kind of really linear. And yeah, so to go back into the parasocial, so I personally love it. At the same time, like getting hives or something. At the same time, I am aware of the fact that my privilege there in particular is that I have worked within and taught within the fitness industry since 2008, across so many different disciplines. So for me, it's really easy to do these YouTube workouts and know that I can adapt it to my needs. I can do things that I know how and when and where to modify these workouts towards my, y- unique needs in terms of like, imbalances or even just preferences. Um, so that's something, if you are new to exercise, you're probably going to need some sort of you know work with like either a fitness instructor or a physio or a personal trainer to kind of give you that basis to be able then to modify classes. At the same time, if that's inaccessible, being aware of what your needs are, and what your preferences are, and any sort of imbalances or injuries or things like hypermobility and things like that, when you can learn and understand more about them, it's easier to take workouts like that as well and make judgments on something that doesn't feel right. I think sometimes when you're in an exercise class or you're following something online, or sometimes even in personal training, it can be really easy to override something that is uncomfortable or wrong for you because you want to finish the program. I'd said it, I think I don't know whether it was last week's or the week before's recording, where I think it was last week, but where I'd went to a trainer and I wanted to learn about being able to do handstands because I just couldn't get it. And later on down the line, I realized part of that was because I was say in my upper body, I was right rotating, and my lower body I was left rotating. So when I was trying to get into a handstand, it was very difficult for me to be able to hold vertical because I was essentially like a wash rag. I was twisting, so to get that sort of balance was really tricky. So I knew I would have to go then and work back into redressing a certain amount of balance for that to be able to be something that was accessible to me, as well as practicing um the sort of fundamentals that you need to do for being able to do handstands. But yeah, I'd explained, the trainer that I'd been working with was a gymnast. I obviously wanted to learn from somebody that, knew how to do it. But by the same token, they couldn't really, they were programming, not assuming like, oh, I'm assuming this person can do this, but as in, um, forgetting that, the amount of the volume in the program, there was no way was ever going to be able to achieve the volume within this program because the the moves, the exercises, the calisthenics in this particular programming for this trainer would have been something that is in their endurance realms. It's something that they can just do, not because they haven't trained for it, but because it's something they're so um like professional in it that it's essentially endurance for them. Whereas for me, it would be a strength exercise or even a power exercise, like for where they might be able to do 10 or 12 reps of this and after like 30 seconds rest, be able to go again. For me, some of these exercises were like I would be able to do one or two. I need about 3 minutes break in between. So the vastness of the program, um, I couldn't do it all. And on top of all my other training, again, that lessened my ability to do it. But the part of me, the perfectionist in me, the super competitive part of me, felt like I was failing because I was like, I need and want to be able to do all of this. Almost, it wasn't even like I was falling into I should be able to do this because it was so big. I was like, there's no way. um so I can't even remember why I went on this sort of like tangent, but it's like it's I think it's basically going into that sort of idea that it's great to be able to follow other people's programs. It's great to be able to follow other people's videos, or even in-person classes. It's great to be able to follow classes, but it becomes so much better when you can be aware of what your capacity is. I've mentioned this a couple of times in the videos and podcasts as well. You know, capability and capacity are two different things. You, I think, especially when you, if you're for, like me, you know, late diagnosed autistic. Um, After finding out I was autistic, and after finding out, after being diagnosed, so there's about 4 year gap in between that, but there was um, two sort of levels of almost like a drop off of where I realized that I was making myself do things that I couldn't sustain. And it's the same with sort of like exercise. There might be things that you could do like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 20 years ago, that you maybe can't access now. And that can be like almost like soul destroying, really like knock your confidence if you can't sort of look at it like you might somewhere down the line be able to access that again. But at any one time, comparison is never going to be helpful. So a lot of the time when we're thinking of exercise, um, and comparison, we think about the comparison when you're looking at what you can do versus what somebody else can do. Um, and that has so many layers as well, because of course we only see like a two-dimensional sort of thing. We're not looking at all the factors, like how long they've been training, what their day-to-day energetic, you know, levels are, whether they have kids or not, how long their work hours are, what injuries or illnesses they have or don't have, what their support team and network looks like. Do they have, you know, teams of trainers and mindset coaches and dietitians behind the, you know, do they have, you know, things like, you know, special dietary needs or mobility needs, and do they have team support? So there's all these moving parts that we need to think of when we consider what someone else is doing. Um, but I almost think that comparing yourself to yourself is the sneaky one. It's the insidious one, because you don't think of it so much. You think, oh, don't compare, because it's, you know, and all that sort of noticing and comparison and jealousy and all that. They're all they are really is signals towards a desire. So if you can, you know, stop that judgment between your judging and then judging yourself for judging, and sort of be like, okay, this is signaling me towards something that I either want to be able to do or want to have, and how can I reverse engineer that to be something that is accessible to me, and get sort of realistic on the time frames, and what it would take to make that happen. But it's the same with yourself. If you are comparing yourself to a younger version of yourself, or a child free version of yourself, or before and after, like a diagnosis or a major burnout, or, you know, any of these things, that can be a real spanner in the works to how you're getting on with your exercise journey as well. Take a breath. I just sometimes I'm just like go on the spiel, but you know, my mind is kind of like in gear now. Um, I like to bring attention to this. So I've done a few videos on my YouTube on this. I used to do running diaries. So I would like, you know, um, record as I was doing my run, and, you know, do little bits around it and musings, because when I'm doing exercise, or if I'm out on my stimmy walks, also exercise, but of course the video the video quality is slightly different. Um, that's when my best ideas come through. So I would do videos around these you know, we'll go with the running diaries. So I've got the running diaries on my YouTube. Um, and I talk quite a lot about this, comparing yourself to yourself and embracing being a beginner when you're returning to something. Because for me, it has been massive. Like there's literally no way I could compare my capacity um to what it was, you know, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because all of these different points have been so different. I am coming off of the back of so many different huge traumatic events that took so much of my energy, and had me in a state of survival for such a long time. I think if you're having to mentally think a lot of the time as well, and you're having a lot of mental and emotional exhaustion, you don't realize how much energy that actually takes. Or even being able to make yourself do tasks that there's a lot of demand avoidance sort of around them. The sort of tasks that you benefit from body doubling from. If that's taking a lot of your spoons, it's taking away spoons from what your physical capacity is going to be as well. So for me to compare my athletic abilities or my PBs to, let's say, 10 years ago, when I was a personal trainer in central London, teaching again up to 18 classes a week. And of course I wasn't a parent. I had a very different capacity then to now as a single parent, after, the three moves in 18 months, after the flooding and all the, medical and systemic gaslighting that I was sort of like battling up against. While nobody was advocating for me, that took so much energy from me and put me in like a perpetual state of burnout. Whereas if you compare that to 10 years ago, 10 years ago is maybe a bad example, because this time 10 years ago on Sunday, I lost my mum. So, we were like in intensive care and HD at this time. But even so, I was really, really fit and really fast. Even though I wasn't treating my body particularly well, but I was training. I can't even think how much I was training away. I mean, my own personal training would have been somewhere between 5 and 10 hours a week. Plus, if I was doing up to 12 spin classes a week and doing them, that's another like 8 hours. And then, I was doing like up to 30,000 steps a day because I was going between classes. Naturally, I'm going to be fitter, faster, stronger than now when I'm not training that much. So that's something worth looking into as well. Are you comparing yourself to a younger version of yourself that maybe, either had more support or less responsibility, or just as so many people come to experience and recognize after you find out that you're autistic or ADHD or are diagnosed, all of a sudden, a lot of the things that you could do before you realized, you know, that you were autistic or ADHD, um, just isn't accessible anymore. And there's like a real grief that kind of comes with that, when you're like, but I could do that. Why can't I do it now? Like, I could do that before. Why? And part of that is because so many people will project that onto you as well. Like, oh, you were able to do it before, but like what now you just can't. And that's really difficult in itself as well. So there's so much I mean, you have to go sort of almost through that grieving journey with that. Um, because I know it's like easy for me to sit here and say all of this, because I'm speaking about it almost from the scar rather than from the wound. This isn't me going like, oh, it's easy, because it's not easy. There's so many times I'm like, I want to get like a 7.5 minute mile, but like for long distance. And I'm like, you know, And part of me is like, why can't I do it? But then I like, again, on a conscious level, I understand why I can't. My body is having to and had to work so hard just to kind of, you know, do day to day things, because recovering from the fallout of so many massive upheavals takes a lot of energy. Takes a lot of energy. But I was thinking about it this morning because I was thinking in terms of like my personal goals. I didn't set any personal goals for fitness per se. Um, for this year because there's things that I want to do in other arenas, and I'm quite happy to sort of like, still get progress if you like, but I'm quite happy with sort of maintenance if you like with exercise. But I was thinking I would really like to eventually be able to do like a trail half marathon or marathon, or I really want to do the ultra, but realistically with the energy that I've got, so like as I said at the beginning of this recording, was this week with the launch of the classes, which was another thing where it's like years ago that didn't seem like energetically that big a deal, whereas it's absolutely wiped me out this time because there's been a 6-year gap. It's in a new environment, a new place, very small town, community, so it relies really heavily on that social aspect that, if you've ever lived in a village or a town before, if you're not already from there, it can take a long time to sort of build that. Um, but yeah, so I've been tired. I've not, there's been nights where I'm sort of like, oh, I'll do yoga. I'll do like a pre-bed yoga. And, and then I'm like, no. So that's been one of the big things that I've been practicing in the last like 12 months in particular, has been like, where are the subtle shoulds coming from? Would I benefit from it? I might benefit. I would benefit from it. But if I really don't want to do it and I just want to be still, I've been really cultivating that ability to just be still and just to do something else. And I realized that because there's been so many things that have challenged sort of like my nervous system and meant that I've not been sleeping particularly well, the more I can really, really lean into giving my body what it needs versus what I want to give it, the more likely it is that I'm going to be able to return to things like long distance running, to return to Olympic lifting, to return to things that are more intense exercise. But if I keep on pushing the envelope and working to what I want to do rather than to, again, capacity, the longer and less likely it's going to be that I'm going to be able to return to those things or return to those things in the capacity that I want to be able to. And it's always that dance. It's that dance between that sort of like I wouldn't say guesswork, but when I'm teaching on this, again, like not necessarily teaching the exercise itself, what I'm having to remind other people of, it's I don't have to remind them, or what I like to remind people of, is that none of it's sort of like fail safe. And I don't know whether it's like whether it is an interoception thing. I can't really speak from a neurotypical perspective because I don't know what that's like. But I know from my perspective that I can have a professional understanding from, the teaching, learning, and doing exercise myself and competing and things like that, that I can have all of that knowledge there. But in practice, it's very different. And I've spoken on some of the other recordings about this as well, where it can be really, really challenging to work out, am I mentally or emotionally fatigued or am I physically fatigued? Because they both show up as physical fatigue. And what I've mentioned before is that for me, I'll do 5 minutes of a warm up, because you should be doing that anyway, before doing any sort of intense exercise, to ascertain whether it's going to be an emotional and mental fatigue. I'll find that the physical fatigue will start to lift and that I want to keep on going with the exercise. Whereas if it's actually physical fatigue, it's not going to lift. And pushing through that and making myself do a workout is not going to yield great results. It's going to feel horrendous. So yeah, lots of kind of points to sort of consider. And it's I obviously touched on the socials, solo, social, parasocial at the beginning, and I'll circle back into it. That's kind of one of the ways I teach, is by taking the experience that I've got, or that I find that I go through myself, and then teach from those points before I'm teaching how it might then apply to you. Um, but it's a question. It's a question I think will be really good to sort of ask yourself, what do you need? And you might find it shifts. Sometimes or you might find that you need a little bit of all of them. Maybe you do like to have certain types of exercise that you do completely by yourself. But as I said, do you maybe need somebody that is like a body double, or just even the going to a gym or a place is what helps you? For me, I don't need that. I can quite happily do workouts at home, be it lifting, cardio, yoga, whatever, because I love it. Like I love it. Um, but if my energy is off, or I'm going through challenges, I can find it more challenging to do it. And I have to do the internal questioning of, what, why am I struggling with this? Is this because, is it because I do genuinely need that rest, or is there something here that's sort of preventing me going into it? Or sometimes it's that mental block that comes up, the mental, the things of, well, if I do this workout, then I've got to factor in washing my hair, or getting to whatever place, getting to the gym. So I'd answered a question yesterday on an AuDHD space yesterday around that, where they'd said that, when they think about all the other things that they have to do to exercise, it just triggers that demand avoidance, and they can't do anything at all. And in that instance, it's kind of like what I've been saying before. It's finding the blocks, and making it as accessible as possible, which from my personal perspective is finding something that is either really easy for you to do, or doing something that is really, really enjoyable, rather than thinking I should, you know, run, or I should go to the gym. Is there maybe like a dance class, or like a martial arts class, or something that you could do, something that's going to take away the thought of it being an exercise, and just thinking, oh, I fancy that, like I'll give it a go. And this is where the social, solo, parasocial bit comes in. That might be where you then need to think, okay, do I need a personal trainer to um, help me, go through this, either because you're learning how to do it, or just because you need somebody there guiding you? Or could it be a friend? Could it be something where there are maybe social groups on Facebook, or, even doing anonymous posts and being like, oh, I'm really fancying doing this. Is there anybody else that might be interested in doing it? Looking at ways of working with it that way. Because when I was working, particularly, I'm not going to say particularly London, I'm thinking all of the big gyms that I worked within, generally speaking, you had populations of people that came in and either just used the gym, or just went to classes. Sometimes you'd have a bit, like, people that do a bit of both, but generally speaking, you've got two or three sets of people. You've got the people that literally go to classes, and that is it, that is their jam. And then you've got people that go to the gym and that is it. That is their jam. And then you've got, a third group maybe that do like personal training or something like that. And it's not a case of right or wrong or, hierarchy or, anything like that. It's people having found what works for them and sticking with it. And I think that's so important when it comes to exercise, because there's so much out there telling you what you should be doing. You should do this. You should do this. You should really be able to do this. Don't do this. Meh, 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 meh. And, and the most important thing is that it's something that doesn't become relegated to just being another thing on the to-do list that brings stress and pressure. It should be the thing that is giving you energy, giving you joy, bringing something to your life. And it's not always going to be like that. As I say, I love this stuff and I go through periods of time where I'm like, really? So yeah, so there's that. And then to finish off, of course, if you've got any questions, if you've listened to this and been like, oh, you've not really answered the question, you just went off on 80 million tangents, you can pop me, a message in the comments, or, this is going to be going out onto my YouTube. It's, of course, going to be on Substack. But it also now goes through to, I know it definitely goes through to Spotify as a podcast, but I think it goes through to Apple Podcasts as well, but I'm not 100% sure. I can double check. But anywhere, like, if you're like, oh, can I like ask a question or can you clarify this? Like, just let me know. But the Parasocial, so I wanted to get to the Parasocial, and I plug this in. This drains my battery so quickly. The parasocial bit, like I want to do a video on parasocial interaction anyway, because I think it's such a fascinating topic. And I love parasocial activities. 2 seconds. I love parasocial activities. And parasocial connecting kind of gets a bad rap. Because when we think of parasocial activity, we're thinking about people that are getting obsessed with like celebrities or, sort of devolving into the areas of like, stalking and things like that. But if we think about it in terms of what's going on in the social media or the world right now, is we've got a lot of people making decisions or having commentary on people's lives because they have, we have an idea of what somebody is based on what we're presented with, particularly with the celebrity world. So you're only really getting one perspective of what somebody is. I also saw, actually, it was on a thread and somebody was talking about how they didn't like sort of fangirl energy. And I was intrigued by that because I feel like I can be a bit fangirl, but at the same time, it's because I like, if I see someone's doing something really awesome, I want to tell them about, and I probably want to tell everybody else about it. But the difficulty with that can be, not only can it feel really overwhelming if people are not used to that, is that if it is to the level where you can't hold, so in say like a coaching space, can't hold space for someone being a whole entire person, that's when it kind of becomes difficult, or when you get that whole what is it, not meeting your heroes or something like that, and people getting disappointed because they've got this projection of what somebody is, and then they meet them in real life and they're an actual human person with boundaries and emotions and characteristics that can't be conveyed through, say social media or media. So it's a really interesting topic to look into. I don't think it was even when I studied social psychology that it was when I read, it's right to the side of me, The Perfectionist Guide of Losing Control by Catherine Morgan Schaffer. and brilliant book. And I was reading that, and it was the first time I'd really come across the terms with all the paras. So parasocial, interactions, but it was also where I first came across the term parasuicidality, which again is a really deep topic for another day, but it's like it's a parallel, right? It's parallel. So um for me, parasocial activity is like what I was saying earlier on in the recording. I was saying that for me, I love it. Like, I love doing YouTube workouts. So it would be, say, yoga with Adrian, which I first started doing in 2020, and I still return to them now. But some of them I've done, like, how people come for watch Friends and stuff like that. I've done them so many times that I'm kind of like, oh, I can't do it anymore. Like when you um have that favorite meal that you eat for like months on end, and all of a sudden you've got sensory overwhelm with it and you can't eat it again, and then you're like, no, I've lost my comfort thing and I'm gonna have to find something else. So yeah, so I've got that in terms of, books and yeah, YouTube exercise videos and stuff like that. And as I'd said before, for me, it was that way of feeling some sort of social connection, because it's a one-sided social connection, right? But without actually having to people. So it was ideal for when I maybe was going through burnout, or when like I wanted to feel connected to people, but didn't necessarily have the energy or capacity to go out and be social. The difference there, compared with sort of like the celebrity world kind of thing, is I don't feel like I know these people, or there's no kind of like, I'm not following anything else they're doing or anything like that. It was just a way for me to be able to do something that felt social without being social. um yeah. There's maybe somebody that'll watch this or listen to this that can explain it even better, but that's just kind of, I just think it's a really cool thing to be able to tap into if you find that it's not always accessible doing these things in person, or it's not always accessible doing exercise by yourself. So it's well worth doing. And in terms of finding teachers online, there's loads of courses, loads of videos. If you're going on something like YouTube, or even when you're picking the type of exercise that you're doing, what I would say is not to write something off if you do a class with one teacher and you're like, this sucks. And that's the same with in-person classes or in-person exercises. Unless, of course, it's absolutely awful, or you're just like, overall, this is just terrible. But you're going to find different people teach in different ways. And there might just be one teacher out there that just lands with you and means it is for you. Um, so I would say try 2 or 3 different teachers um, for any one type of exercise, and see if there's one that fits better than the other. Um, because you don't want to miss out on something that's really good just because the teacher just wasn't a match. And as I say, this is in person or online, because for example, teaching spin, I taught spin very, very differently to my colleagues, and that could be down not even just to the type of teaching, but the intensity of teaching, or even down to the music. So again, if you're like me and you're sensory seeking, the music for me is important. The intensity and variety of intensities is important. The actual feel of the class, the environment, everything that goes into it is important. So there's some people I love learning from. There's other people that I'm like, no, can't do it. Yeah. So I would say that, and then um trying something that you like. So if there's something that's been on your mind that you're like, oh, I'd love to try that, or I'd love to achieve XYZ, try it. If it's something that keeps on playing in your mind over, oh, I must try that, or I really want to try that, but you're putting it off until the right time, I would say find the first accessible step to trying it and try it. And the reason I say that is because there's never really, unless you've got like, you know, like injuries and your medical professional has said absolutely not, that's a different story. But if there's something you want to try it, because the rent space or the thought of it running, thinking I must try that, takes up so much more energy than trying it and then realizing whether it's for you or it's not. Because you might find that there's something that you think you want to do that actually you're like, oh God, no, absolutely not. Total parallel. I was gonna say it's like not the same, but it like fits in is for the longest time, I thought that I wanted to have bigger boobs. I was gonna get a boob job and everything. This took up rent space in my head for like 10, 15 years. Then I got pregnant and I had boobs and I was like, absolutely not. They're in the way. They're annoying me, they're stopping me from doing my training. And it's like, and it's amazing. It's one of these things that you really think that you want, and then you get it, and then you're like, "Ah, hard pass, hard pass." So, same but different. There's going to be something that you think that you want to achieve or that you want to try, and you're going to do it, and you're going to be like, absolutely not. Um, and life's too short, right? We've got to try these things. It's better to try something once or twice and realize that it's absolutely not for you than just always wishing that you tried it. Yeah. And then the final point kind of feeds back into finding the right class for you or right modality of exercises, thinking about the time that's accessible to you as well. So, if you're not used to exercising, loading yourself up into doing 5 workouts a week at the gym for an hour is not the one. It's gonna suck really quickly. If it's not your natural vibe, it's not your natural habitat, and you haven't really had space to see how exercise works with your available energy as well, and how your energy peaks and flows, or peaks and troughs, sorry. Um, Start with where you are with what you've got, but also, start modestly, um, y- you know, 10, 15, 20 minutes, anything just that kind of gets you establishing a habit first, and you can always build upon a habit later, rather than going too intensely. So, for me, particularly with the Parasocial, so the online classes, if they are longer than 20 to 30 minutes, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.